news that the London Stadium are set to announce a long overdue naming rights partner in the form of Allianz has overshadowed some news which I feel is far more relevant and pertinent to us as West Ham fans. And that was yesterday, and that news is that Chelsea may well be looking to ground share the London Stadium with West Ham for about 2 to 3 years. The reason for doing that is because they want to knock down Stanford Bridge and build a new stadium. Well, that's the plan under Todd Bowley. It wasn't the plan under Roman Abramovich, but we have been here before, and because of that, I've got a little bit of an inside steer on it, actually, which I'm going to share with you. Now, the thing about Chelsea is really relevant here because the reason they want to move and how they're going to move is definitely going to impact West Ham because, make no mistake about it, they will have their sights set on the London Stadium. The original plan was to move to Earls Court, and for any of you that have ever been to an exhibition there, it's a huge site, absolutely monstrous, and it would have been a really good plan for them to move there to do a new stadium because they could have built it at Earls Court, knocked down the exhibition centre, stayed at Stanford Bridge, and when a new stadium was built, they could have moved in there, then knocked down Stanford Bridge and sold that off to property developers. The fact that Todd Bowley has now decided that he has to stay at Stanford Bridge means that they're going to have to knock it down. They're going to have to play somewhere else. They can't do. They certainly can't do what Tottenham did. And because, well, there's no space around the stadium in and around Stanford Bridge. A lot of listed buildings, very, very closed in. They're going to have to go away while it's built and then move into a brand spanking new stadium. And they may want to come to West Ham. One of the reasons for that is that I think it's Kensington and Chelsea Council, London Borough of Kensington and Chelsea. They're going to build 4,000 houses on the site of Earls Court. Don't get me wrong, the site is big enough for 4,000 houses, but I tell you what, anyone that knows the area and that part of West London, there's not the infrastructure, not the roads around there to support 4,000 houses. That's for sure. It'd be a nightmare. You don't want to, once they build those 4,000 houses, you don't want to be driving around there. That's for sure. Anyway, that's a subject for a different day and certainly not anything we'll cover on this channel. What it means is Chelsea will want to come to West Ham. Now, the reason I say I've got an inside track on this is maybe in 2017, 2018, and there were a number of us, sort of West Ham magazines, YouTube channels, podcasts, who were called in for a meeting with the club, and in particular with Baroness Brady, Lady Brady, I think it's Baroness, but Baroness Brady. We're called in for a meeting with her. Now, the reason we were called in for a meeting was because things weren't going swimmingly in terms of the move to the London Stadium. There was problem with the stewarding. There was problem with fans being told to sit down constantly. There was a disconnect. There was a discord between the fans and the stadium operators, certainly. We'd been used to life at West Ham. West Ham had employed the stewards. A lot of the stewards at West Ham, Upton Park, were West Ham fans. When we got the move, that certainly wasn't the case. So I think there was a certain amount of a PR stunt from the club to get us all involved because they clearly wanted us to convey their messaging and to get that across to, you know, our subscribers or readers for magazines or whatever the case may be. But they were also asked for ideas, some of which, the small things were implemented, some of which weren't. But one of the things that came up at the time was Chelsea were looking to ground share with West Ham. And it was something that I heard direct from the lips of Karen Brady. And Karen Brady said this to myself and everybody else that was present, that West Ham had a veto. West Ham could veto any stadium decision to allow Chelsea to ground share. So even if the stadium agreed to it, West Ham would have to rubber stamp it. So we asked her, would you do that? Is that something you would rubber stamp? And she said, we would only do it if Chelsea gave us enough money that we could improve some of the facilities here in the stadium, which would help us generate more revenue and make the stadium a little bit more hospitable to football. Obviously, it's a converted athletic stadium. She said, if we could do that, we might agree to it. So basically, if Chelsea were going to come and say, look, if we can rent that off of you, we'll give you, I don't even know what the figure was, 70 million to upgrade parts of the stadium, West Ham would have agreed to it. That was what she said in the meeting. And whether that's changed or not, I don't know. But I did think it was interesting to know that if it does come to it, it is something that West Ham will consider if the money is right. Now, the thing that is interesting about this is I looked at the stadium when I went there for the Nottingham Forest game. And I was walking around, I was with my kids, and look, it's a big thing, and it was my 9-year-old's first game this season. And while she's looking at it, it's a grand scale, the stadium, the London Stadium, and she was looking up. A lot of it is falling into a little bit of disrepair. Those of you that will remember when there was really heavy rain, the stadium was leaking, but you've only got to look at the sort of top structure of it. It's starting to rust. A lot of it's going green with algae or whatever it is. Whatever that is. It looks like it needs a good bit of maintenance. Now, this is really important to remember this, and that is that the stadium was never designed to be a permanent structure. The bottom part was, which is why the bowl, the bit that's dug into the ground, is all concrete. It was the top section, all of that stuff that you see, or all the white trusses and the structure of the stadium itself, and all the fabrics around, and all that part of the stadium. That was always meant to come down. It was meant to be converted and reduced into a 25,000, not 25, not that small, 25,000-seater athletic stadium. That never happened. So my point is, you have a structure that wasn't designed to last. So it's going to need probably more maintenance than a structure that would have been designed to be permanent. So West Ham have got to try and bring this money in from somewhere. But I certainly didn't ever feel that it was a case that money needed to be brought in to maintain the stadium. Certainly when speaking to Karen Brady back then, whatever it was, 6 years ago, whatever it might have been, it was a case of for them to improve it. Now, this does tie in really, really interestingly with the naming rights and Allianz, because I don't know how much money it's going to be. I've read a few articles. I can't find a definitive figure. Why would we know it? It's a private negotiation. What I do find interesting is, and I don't know much about the legalities of this sort of thing, but I did wonder if the stadium, the LLDC, sign a naming rights agreement with Allianz. Does that mean that West Ham then can't buy the stadium? Now, I know there are a lot of people here who will be thinking, well, West Ham aren't going to buy the stadium anyway. And we've certainly heard nothing from West Ham in recent times to indicate that they wanted to buy the stadium. But there certainly was a desire, going back to that meeting back then, there certainly was a desire back then for West Ham to eventually own the stadium. And I just wonder if this deal gets made, let's say it's 10 years, it's 20 years as a naming partner, does that mean that West Ham then can't buy it? And in that case, does that make us less attractive to be taken over? Because one of the key components to West Ham moving is, I think, is eventually that Sullivan, Gold & Sullivan as it was then, would sell up. What makes it attractive is the real estate, is the area surrounding it. But if you buy West Ham but you can't take over the stadium, then what's the point? I mean, what is the point? It is worth saying that stadium, the footprint of it is a 90,000-seater stadium. I was there for the Olympics. It was 90,000. So that's why you've got all that open space there. We could still have the same. We could still have 60,500, but really close up to the pitch. That would create a lot of space. There's more apartments, there's more shopping, there's more valuable real estate that you can use, that any potential investor could use in and around the stadium. Also, if they managed, because you'd have to persuade UK Athletics to leave. If UK Athletics left and went somewhere else, to Sheffield or to Birmingham, then you actually have the test track which is next to it. If it was no longer an athletic stadium, you wouldn't need the warm-up track. So again, this is all valuable real estate. And I do wonder if actually the agreement with Allianz is actually very bad news for West Ham. It's obviously good news as far as the stadium's concerned, as far as the taxpayer's concerned, because that stadium makes huge losses. But is it going to yield enough? So I think the losses are somewhere between 15 and 20 million pound a year. If the sponsorship is worth 4 million pound a year, which is what it needs to be, anything above that, West Ham start getting a share of it. If it were 4 million a year, it's still not offsetting the losses. I don't know. I feel there's an awful lot more to come in this. My instinct would be that if Allianz and the LLDC have got any sense, they'd have probably factored into any agreement that there may be a potential sale. And maybe at that point, Allianz get a rebate. Maybe in the event of West Ham getting sold, the agreement is null and void from that point onwards. Maybe there's an agreement in the event that somebody buys West Ham or West Ham buy the stadium, that Allianz have to remain the stadium naming partner. I don't know, but it's very, very interesting, and I definitely feel that something is happening. But, you know, if you were to tell me that in 2 years' time West Ham would be playing inside the Allianz Arena, the Allianz Dome, whatever you want to call it, the Allianz Bowl, alongside Chelsea as our co-tenants, I've got to say it wouldn't surprise me at all.